I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Thou shalt rise again.
Power to make multitudes run squealing in terror at the touch of my little invisible finger.
Do you believe in werewolves?
To a new world of gods and monsters.
Welcome everybody back to the retrospective of the Universal Monsters box set. Ken, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I told you this before we started recording, but I'm just gonna go ahead and pull back the curtain. I didn't get a chance to rewatch Dracula's Daughter, but I remember enough, and I'm gonna let you sort of take the reins on this one. But looking forward to talking about it.
So honestly, it's funny. You said you didn't get a chance to rewatch it, and this was actually my first time watching it.
So what did you think of this one?
You know, it's weird. Right after I watched it, it didn't seem like it was sticking with me that well, but I think it's a good thing I watched it like a week and a half ago, because it's definitely like grown on me a little bit. As weird as that sounds, like I didn't think it would. I really didn't. But I wouldn't put it up there with, you know, some of the bigger classics. There's a reason this one isn't one of the more famous ones.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that bad. I mean, the Countess
I'll say this.
An interesting character, to say the least.
I'll say this: I think it is a shame that she didn't become as like recognizable as like the Bride of Frankenstein did, you know, as a female monster.
I think it's because she just didn't have that interesting of a design. It was just too...
Exactly.
It wasn't bad. It was just bland. You know, It's almost like... it's like
the bride has that big Nefertiti haircut, so that's just unforgettable.
Yep. I mean, it's almost like take a generic slasher film from the 80s where the killer is just wearing, you know, jeans and a t-shirt and a ski mask, and then you compare him to Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers. Who's going to stand out more? The one who's got the, you know, the flashier design. Exactly.
But aside from that, as I recall, she was good. She didn't have the Hungarian accent of Bela Lugosi, but she spoke in this really melodramatic way that I thought was that was pretty enchanting in its own way.
Mm-hmm. What I liked about her character, and what I liked about this movie overall, and why it started sticking with me more after giving it some time to breathe, was, and I always hesitate to say that so many of these could benefit from modern day remakes, kind of in the vein of Invisible Man, the one that what's his face just did, the one that came out in 2019,
Lee Winnell
in 2020, is her whole glad her father's dead because of the memories she had, which that's a kind of a retcon, because I would like some backstory on that maybe. But
yeah, like it hardly explains why she wasn't really mentioned in the first movie.
Yeah, and who was her mom, and where did she grow up? But whatever. And
was one of his brides her mother? You know,
the brides who were in the first movie for like 30 seconds between.
Yeah, were any of them?
But what I like about it, and why I think it would benefit from some form of a remake, would be the diving into her wanting to not be a mindless killer and wanting to get over the addiction of human blood. I mean, what do you think? Do you think this is where do you think Stephanie Meyer stole some ideas from this, Ken?
Yes, and poorly executed. No, it's actually so as I'm recalling, yeah, because like I said, it's been a while since I watched this one, but yeah, she wanted sort of a cure of her vampirism, correct?
Mm-hmm. She basically wanted, and yeah, that's why she was going to Dr. Garth, because she's like, I need your help. I want to be past this. And like, I'll let you go more into the deeper into the scene I'm about to bring up, but that scene with the woman where she was trying like not to do it, and she told him later, she's like, the temptation, it consumed me. My temptation won.
Yeah, and sort of another character that, as we were discussing, we both love is sort of her assistant Sandor, played by Irving Pichel. Yeah, so he's I'm not sure how to describe him. I mean, again, it's fresher in your memory, but he sort of, as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, as much as he was an assistant to her, he was sort of an instigator because he wanted the vampirism. He liked the idea of that power.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that I think could be delved more into again with a remake. And I hate to keep saying I want this to be remade because it's like I do and I don't. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, well, it's like I wanted to know more about this Sandor character. Who was he? Had he like kind of taken care of her all these years? Had he watched out for her? Because it's like he kind of felt like a butler, but he kind of felt like a father figure who was in love with her.
Maybe he was some sort of like a Renfield,
Mm-hmm.
But okay, a modern take on this could be interesting because it could sort of have parallels of her addiction to blood, like being like a drug addiction, which they could play up a lot more in in today's climate as opposed to the 1930s.
Easily. I mean, almost the same way they did with the original Evil Dead and the Evil Dead remake, where like that in the original Evil Dead, they just wouldn't leave the house. In the remake, when Mia was freaking out, and they're like, it's just the withdrawals, ignore, we gotta stay. Where it's like you could give more of a, you go deeper into it.
Yeah. Excuse me. So what do you think of Edward Van Sloan coming back as Professor Van Helsing?
As weird as this sounds, I barely recognize that as actually having been him.
Yeah, he's not as good in this one.
No, right? Not at all. And for some reason...
But I think it's also the material. He doesn't have any material to work off of.
They didn't do anything with him in this movie. And for some reason, they changed him to Von Helsing.
Yeah.
Because at first when they said it, I was like, did that police officer just like mispronounce it? Like maybe he just has an accent or something? No, I mean, he's credited as Von Helsing. I'm like,
maybe it's a rights thing.
Maybe, but it was
maybe
still
Bram Stoker's widow didn't, approve or his estate didn't approve for like a sequel, and so they couldn't call him the exact same name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I mean, he was all right. He just didn't do any. He just didn't do anything in this movie.
In situations like that, I'm really always hesitant to blame the actor because it really comes down to the writers just didn't give you anything to work off of.
I didn't feel the charisma, and I didn't feel like I heard his voice the same way I heard like some of the speeches he gave in the original Dracula. So that's probably why I didn't even really recognize it was him at first.
Yeah. But, yeah, so what did you think of sort of, I was going to say sort of Countess's plot, but she doesn't really she's not really a plotting type. She's just sort of, she's bringing in young women to drain them of their blood, but she doesn't want to. She's not evil and conniving. It's like an addiction, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought was interesting about it. And that's why I almost look at this as it's like, I know I'm probably about to insult these movies, and I don't mean to, but this plot isn't as simplistic as Dracula or Frankenstein. This one seems like the story and the character of Countess Zaleska requires a little bit more explanation. With Frankenstein, it's man creates monster, monster gets loose, fight it, kill it. But I know it's deeper than that, but it's like in this one, you can't explain it as easily as that.
No, but that's interesting, and I hate to reach this point, and I do like the movie. I do think it's good. I do think it's probably the weakest one out of those that we've reviewed so far. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately,
here's the deal. But here's the deal: is it's got all that like you said, it's a more detailed and layered plot than, you know, Dracula or Frankenstein were, but it's just not executed quite as well as those were. Like even though those were a simpler plot, something about it just clicked and just felt so good and smooth.
It's because, in my opinion at least, all of these obviously have their stories and are story driven, but those also had more of a body count, more of, you know, like the monster being involved, where, like we said here, she's not really a monster in the same vein as the Frankenstein monster, the Mummy, the Invisible Man, or Dracula himself. We're looking at a woman who's trying her hardest to get over this curse and addiction that she doesn't want, because she doesn't want to be anything like her father. I mean, we're almost looking at another tragedy right here.
I know, yeah, and you just bringing that up is her not wanting to be like her father. Like, man, a remake could really delve into all these plot points.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's call Lee Winnell. I think he can help us out. He knocked it out of the park with Invisible Man. Hey, you've spoken to him before, haven't you?
Well, we also are getting that Wolfman movie with what's his name that he's making. Damn it, who is in that movie?
It just fell out of my head too.
The dude from The Notebook.
Ryan Gosling. Who?
Ryan Gosling.
Yes, right.
Gonna be him, right?
I actually am excited for that. I actually am, because I like Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, well, and with how Lee Winnell did the Invisible Man, like you said when we were over on Film Feast, like, give him the Dark Universe, man.
He can do it, because you don't need to go back to medieval times to do these movies. You can do modern day interpretations of them. Just don't bring in the same guy who did The Mummy.
I do. Yeah, no. Man, the Dark Universe, the cinematic universe of one movie.
With like the coolest logo of all time and the coolest trailer. It gets one movie and it was over.
Got one movie, and there's that scene. Honestly, there's that scene in that movie when Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe are walking through that like museum, and you see like the Gillman's fin and the vampire skull with the fangs, and I'm just like, oh, you're try. It just felt a little try-hardy to me.
It would be like if like Captain America came out, or it'd be like Iron Man came out, and like he's walking down a hallway, and it's like Captain America's shield is there, the Hulk's serum is right there, Thor's hammer and helmet are right there, Hawkeye's bow and arrow, and it's like, wow.
Well, I've got to say, Chad, and I know you love this movie, or at least you like it a lot.
No, not Lex's files on his computer.
Well, not even that, but like when they're just walking down that hallway and you see Doc Ock's arms and like the vulture wings.
Oh, I thought you were talking about BVS.
Oh, no, I was talking The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Hey, at least in that movie's fairness, it was in the last like 30 seconds.
True. What scene in BVS? Oh, BVS. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, all their little videos.
No, I love the extended cut of BVS just the same as you do.
Oh yeah.
Anyways,
wow.
Let's get back to.
There must not be much for us to say left about this movie if we dived into all those. But I mean, it's just there's just not much. I don't know. I just don't have much to say. I mean, Dr. Garth really didn't grab me. The Countess Zaleska did the best she could, but she's
definitely the best part of that movie.
It wasn't an exciting film. I mean, and I don't mean to say like I'm bored by slow movies. I mean, It Follows is one of my favorite horror movies, and Ken, you know it. That is one of the most slow movie films ever, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But so.
It's like, just not exciting, I guess. But
I'll say this about this movie: if you're a completionist, I don't think you'll be disappointed by this one. But if you're just sort of a casual fan of the Universal Monsters, I will say you can probably skip this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is one I'd say like after you've made your way through all the big names and you're kind of like, I liked all the big ones. I want to go back. I mean, this one's definitely worth checking out. I mean,
Yeah, it's
shoot,
worth
what's
checking
her
out.
face?
I'll probably watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, what's her face? Janet, his Dr. Garth's secretary. She was probably my favorite character in the movie behind Countess Zaleska. I don't know what it was about
Yeah.
Janet. She was just like kind of a bitch, but not in a bad way, but like in a good way where it's like, I love this character. Yeah, there you go, spunk. That's a much better word.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like that. It is weird to me that like I mean I'll just say it because should enough people think of this. I mean, because every review I've seen talk about this movie mentions it. There's like some lesbian implications in it with her, bringing in the young women to drain their blood, but I'm not sure if that was deliberate, because a big part of the plot of the movie is her falling in love with Dr. Garth.
Yeah, and it's like even watching it, because I remember you telling me about that and I'd heard it in other reviews and I watched it and I'm like, I guess for the time, a woman advancing on another woman while asking her there to model, I'm like, I could see it, but I'm like it's not massive, but I guess it's there. But like you said, at the end of the movie, she said, Dr. Garth, I want you to stay here with me. It's like, it can't be that strong of an overtone if she still wanted the man. Unless she did just want him due to the ability to help her suppress the urges.
Yeah, and maybe it's because I haven't watched the movie in a while, but I mean, you watched it, so it's pretty fresh in your mind. But all those plot points, I'm not sure how well they add up.
They just kind of ping pong around a little bit, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, overall with this movie, I think even though the plot is more detailed and layered than some of the more iconic movies, I just don't think it's executed as well. But look, you got, I think, the actress's name, Gloria Holden, playing Countess Maria. How do you pronounce that last name?
Zaleska.
That's it. Her whole atmosphere, it is not quite as good as Bela Lugosi with his Hungarian accent, but she has a haunting atmosphere to herself, and Sandor sort of being this dead-eyed, blunt character. He was pretty interesting. Them just sort of having this, they do have that gothic classic Universal monster charm to them, and that is ultimately, I think, what does make the movie worthwhile, at least to some degree.
I agree, but it's like, unfortunately, when it comes to kind of like, like the female vampire type thing, I'm always gonna look at Morticia Addams. When it comes to that, she's way more iconic.
Yeah, or the mom from the Munsters.
Exactly. Which, how sad is
whose name escapes me?
I know.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Speaking of the Addams family, I always thought the original Morticia Addams was just like absolutely beautiful. The one from the '60s TV show, I think.
Oh yeah.
There's just.
Well, did you see? Apparently, Christina Ricci did a recent pose. I think it was from a year or so ago for Halloween. She dressed up as Morticia Addams because now she's old enough to be Morticia Addams.
Nice.
Yeah, and she is stunning.
And speaking of the monsters, I don't remember if we talked about it, but I'm so depressed by what they're doing to the monsters.
Oh, the Rob Zombie. I think. Oh, didn't we talk about that on one of these?
Probably. I'm just still like depressed over it. I don't want that.
Time for the monsters to face off against screaming, cursing rednecks.
Oh god, rednecks, cursing, swearing, violence, nudity. Oh, great, lovely.
I don't think they'll do that to the monsters.
I mean, did we think he was going to turn Halloween into like a redneck swear fest?
Yeah, that was. I mean, because The original is the ultimate in subtle horror, but he is anything but subtle. But
Yeah.
anyways,
to
like
wrap
I
it up,
said-
what did you think of that end? What did you think of Sandor being the one to kill Zaleska? Like, did you think that was done out of passion or what?
like I said, I can't remember it that well. I do remember that's how it ended, but the specifics of it.
Yeah, I mean, he killed her. He killed her. He was about to kill Garth, and then the cops came in, boom, killed him, and then
That's right.
literally
That's right.
it just literally it just stops. It's like they walk out and look at her body and credits. I'm like, what? But then again, I mean, this was the last one for 3 years. It was like
until Son of Dracula.
No, until Son of Frankenstein.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking of the Dracula series.
Oh, nope. Son of Dracula came out in 43, and this came out in 36.
Oh, yeah, been a while. Okay, yeah, but yeah, you just reminded me. I honestly, Sandor killing her and coming after Dr. Garth. I just think. Honestly, I think he just sort of like did it in a fit of passion and rage because that's how movies ended back then. I'm not sure if there was a ton of thought behind it.
True. Maybe they just didn't know how to end it. I mean, because back then it wasn't. I mean, movies didn't end on jump scares. It was just kind of like, the movie's done. You have a good life, everyone.
Yeah. Ultimately, the plot, it's more layered, not done. You know what? I think this movie had more interesting writing, but worse direction.
Mm-hmm. Good ideas, just not executed well. I almost feel like what's his face? James Whale really could have done something with this, I think.
Yeah, he could have. I mean, the director of this movie was Lambert Hillier, and he's not one that comes. I mean, I know James Whale, I know Todd Browning. This, looking him up for IMDb, is the first I've ever heard of Lambert Hillier.
Yep. Just like looking through his stuff, it's like I'm not like the biggest aficionado on movies from the 10s and 20s and 30s, but it's like just looking through these, I'm like, I have never heard of like anything.
I've never seen any of these either, so.
But you know what?
Yeah,
I will give it to him. He tried. Oh, he worked on the 15-part Batman serial in 43.
Oh, that's interesting.
Good for him. Very nice.
Yeah.
But it's like,
ultimately,
I'll give him credit for trying. And like you said, maybe the lesbian overtone, I'll give him credit for trying to be more ahead of the time than daring, movies were back then. And Gloria Holden for Zaleska, great casting. There just wasn't enough for her to do.
Exactly. She's fantastic. I just wish the script could have been stronger.
Absolutely. So
anything else on it?
That wraps this up, I believe.
Alrighty.
Another episode in the books. Guys, I hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about Dracula's Daughter. What was your thoughts on this movie? Let us know below. Ken, last thoughts.
Again, if you're a completionist, I don't think this one will leave you disappointed. There's some cool gothic essence to it with Zaleska and Sandor, but weaker script than what we've seen so far.
Unfortunately. But hey, it can only go up from here, I think. And I know Ken agrees with me on that one.
The next one, I'm excited.
Perfect. So guys, we will see you in another 2 weeks. Tune in for Son of Frankenstein. Have a good night.